I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right. Yet to fail, nonetheless. Dread it. Run from it. Destiny arrives all the same. This universe is finite, its resources finite. If life is left unchecked, life will face extinction. With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist. I call that a small price to pay for salvation. I'm the only one who knows that. At least I'm the only one with the will to act on it.
I know it feels like all hope is lost. But together, we can kill Thanos.
I'm sorry, little one.
What did it cost?
Everything.
Hello everyone, Malik Myers here. I'm here with my good buddy Nicholas. We are going to try something that neither of us have ever tried before. We are going to do our very first movie commentary on Avengers Infinity War. Of course, we're doing this in anticipation of Endgame. Just got our tickets. There's a lot of hype, a lot of buzz around that movie. And we both have spent a lot of time with this film and just thought it would be fun to watch this and talk about it scene to scene. We're doing this, we're both using Netflix. The film is currently available on Netflix if you want to watch it along with us. Or if you have like a DVD, Blu-ray, digital file, you can watch it there. We're going to be starting from timestamp 0, and you press play as soon as we hit now. Nick, are you ready to go on this monumentous adventure?
I am ready, baby!
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, now.
And immediately opening super eerie with, the usually triumphant Marvel Studios logo, but with none of the music. It's just this
Ominous sound. Or ominous theme.
foreboding intro. It's like, and if I'm right, this is Kenneth Branagh doing sort of like a vocal cameo as the voice of the guy on the Asgardian ship. I think this is Kenneth Branagh.
Very, very ominous. Very cool way to open your movie. One of the Russos, well, no, it wasn't one of the Russos. It was Kevin Feige. He teased that in the first 5 minutes, Thanos would do something that would show you why he's the best MCU villain, and that is, of course, killing Loki the way he does.
Yeah, and it's just like this. We'll talk about Loki in a minute, because I know some people who really feel like Loki got the short end of the stick here, but this entire thing is it's so dark. Like, we open with, the theme is gone. We open with Kenneth Branagh saying, there's women and children here, there's very few warriors here. Just the ship getting blasted. and the first thing we see is Heimdall's like already gutted, bodies everywhere. Like all of the people who are like, there can't be any stakes in this movie. There's no sense of real dramatic weight. It's like, yeah, no main characters have died yet, but from the very first shots, it's like you're in for something heavy. This is not gonna be a fun romp all the way through. There's gonna be fun moments, but like Thanos is standing over Thor's body already. Thor is like barely able to get up.
And we've
And
talked about this. Um, I was very adamant about this movie being less jokey than it ultimately ended up being, and I was surprised by how okay I was with that coming out of the theater, and even just as I was watching the movie, um, because I was dead set on the idea that this movie had to be the tone that it looks like Endgame is going for,
Mhm.
and in a lot of ways it kind of is that. And we do have a lot of jokes here, but they don't undercut any of the dramatic tension or weight. And just, oh god, and just the work on Thanos here, just beautiful.
Well, you know what I think it is? Thanos himself is like really the key to all of this
Yeah,
because when he enters a scene, it is that movie. Like all of the big, like crowd pleasy, jokey scenes, even just the triumphant feeling ones, are the ones where he's not there. Like once he shows up, even if other characters are like saying funny lines, it's almost kind of snuffed out by his presence. It never like reflects on him.
I agree with that. Even where Peter Quill comes up to him and calls his chin a nutsack,
Yeah, like that gets a laugh, but it's like he's not phased by it at all.
not even a little. And that line is a joke, but it's not even played for comedy.
Yeah, because it's just we'll talk about it when we get to it, but a lot of the humor here is like deflect from just how terrible and big this is. And here we go. Okay, here's where a lot of people I hear say that like Loki is smarter than this. This plan is like beneath him, even as like an improvised thing. This is sort of not. Loki should have gone out on a higher note than this. I hear a lot of people say. I personally think this whole stretch is the perfect send off to Loki. Loki will be the character that I get really mad if we bring back in any sort of permanent capacity in Endgame, just because I think this scene, I don't know how you could write a better exit for him than this.
Well,
Personally, I think.
we've talked about. I don't think we've talked about this, but I think the standalone Loki series that they're doing for the Disney Plus streaming service that's going to take place in the past. That's going to follow Loki
It
and his
has,
adventures in between the first Thor and other movies. I think,
it has
or maybe
to.
even before that.
Like, okay, so we talked over Hulk getting beat. It's
Yeah,
like, that's the very first like big cheer moment in the theater seeing this the first couple of times is Hulk coming in, and specifically part one of why I think this is the perfect Loki exit. We give him Tony's line, "We have a Hulk," and that, as many have pointed out, is like our signal to like, okay, Loki's basically completed his arc. He's gone from the villain fighting the Avengers to like Avengers adjacent to "We have a Hulk" is the line that lets us know Loki is a good guy. So like even for a moment when you think he might give Thanos the Tesseract, you're like, he says that, and it's like, no, he's on the good team to stay. And Heimdall dies, and that's sad. Would have been sadder if his role was a bit bigger. I know Ragnarok tried to give him a lot, but again, Idris Elba kind of got underutilized.
but
It is,
this scene still resonates because of Thor's reaction, and that's
yeah,
like one of Thor's like best friends.
Chris Hemsworth is really killing it in this movie, and we will talk about that at length later.
Yeah,
But
like
it's
even coming out of
interesting to
my very first viewing, I was like, Thor is the MVP of this movie, aside from Thanos.
I feel like I feel like there are a couple of like really, really amazing performances in this one, like above the others. Hemsworth is one, Brolin is one. we'll get to the others as they come. But yeah, I'll be interested to see to what extent, if at all, Heimdall is in Loki's series, and like what we might find out about like the relationship between those two, because I'd assume he's going to be in it. I think, I don't know. We'll really see like what the premise of that series is. I'm really interested.
Hey, Nick.
But yeah, we have Loki
Nick.
signaling.
Sorry to cut you off, buddy, but I want to talk about this while we're still on this scene. Do you think, because Captain Logan, one of his big issues with this movie is the why now question. Do you think it was too easy to start this movie off, and he's already gotten a stone off screen, and like we introduce him, and he's getting another one from Thor, and a lot of damage to Thor's ship is already happened. Like there's already been a big battle. Do you think like this movie starts off in a way too easy place?
No, just
Yeah,
because
I don't either. But go ahead.
I feel the Russo's argument that okay, they had the idea of like opening with him attacking Xandar, but really this is a case where like people say always show don't tell, but I think that there are exceptions to every rule. And this is a case where there's really nothing to be gained from showing him attacking Xandar that telling wouldn't also accomplish.
Yeah,
Like when we
that's not where the emotional punch of the story that they're telling starts.
yeah, and when we get to the scene later where Thor clarifies for us and the Guardians that he attacked Xandar, and we see the Guardians' reactions to that, that's where that was the good place for the audience to get that information. And okay, gotta stop talking about that because here we have Loki just I don't know. I love this whole thing so much. Like we talked over him pledging himself to Thanos, and he's like, uh, Loki, like the god of mischief, Odin's son, and he looks at Thor as he says that, and it's like, okay, after all of the family drama that they've had, he's accepted that he's Odin's son, he's Thor's brother, he's doing this for Thor.
Wait, this moment, crack,
Oh,
right
oh,
there.
yes, and like the way that he struggles, and like Tom Hiddleston is a very tall guy, and so seeing him look absolutely puny and like a struggling child as Thanos just effortlessly chokes the life out of him, and like he does this that last ditch scheme that he knows is not going to work. He knows, and yet he puts his life on the line for his brother anyway. And it's I don't know, like people have issues with the way that Loki goes out, and I feel like every bit of dialogue from him, this whole 5-10 minute sequence was just the perfect exit for this character.
I
And so
agree. Um, I think the only questionable thing about this scene is he doesn't have. I mean, it has to be something he can conceal to get close enough to Thanos to use. So I get why it's a dagger, but did you really think a dagger was gonna work?
well, plus that kind of been a thing that he has shown a proclivity toward in other movies, so it just kind of makes sense that he favors that.
And then we're beaming Thor. Oh, not Thor. Hulk over to Earth. And this is
Oh,
I think it's really cool where we do the placement of the triumphant Avengers title, because after that depressing scene, like we get introduced to Doctor Strange and Wong again here, and like it's just another day at the office for them, protecting the sanctum sanctorum. They're about to go out, grab a bite to eat, and Thor shows up and tells them about the impending threat, and then boom.
yeah, they're really like it's it's such a great little moment of like here's two guys just kind of going about their day, even though they are magical wizards, and then Thanos is coming, and it's like, oh no, immediately the
Boom.
problem. Yep.
Avengers. Infinity
Although
War.
I will say, I also think that one video I saw that not a lot of people talk about is that Wong's line. early in the scene where he's like attachment to the material is detached from the spiritual, that actually reflects in a lot of this movie and is kind of a really good thematically relevant line to start the scene out on.
I
And
agree,
also,
especially because we see Thanos take his armor off, and the Russos are talking
yeah,
about how he's not wearing armor in this movie because he's on a spiritual journey to get the stones.
yeah. Although I will say, one issue I have, it's a really tiny thing, but I know that like ending with who is a good like beat to end the scene on. I don't buy that Strange doesn't know who Thanos is.
I mean, he's an alien, and I mean, like, I don't,
Like
I don't
so is
know.
Loki. And like we make a point in Ragnarok where he's like, I've been keeping tabs on people who are a potential threat to the world, and like your brother Loki is one of those beings. It's like I think we kind of lost track, much like I think a lot of the audience lost track, since it's been so long of the fact that, like Bruce will mention later, Loki showing up on Earth is like that's Thanos' doing. Like I'm not entirely sure how that news would have gotten to Strange, but I feel like that
There's no way that news would have gotten to Strange. There's no reason Strange should have to know who Thanos is.
I
Um,
don't know.
and,
He's a
and,
no.
and real quick, like, I want to talk about scenes that we're actually looking at. Um, it
There's
is
so much to talk about through all of this movie that it's
like this scene with Tony and Pepper. I really like it. I'm glad we got it in this movie. Like her, it is unfortunate that the actress has had to like keep like popping like in and out, and like we had to contrive a reason to write her out of Civil War, and it worked there for that story. But I don't know. Like I am still emotionally invested in their relationship, despite the fact that they've had to like sidestep it for the purposes of the stories that they're telling in each subsequent movie. But I I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but like
I was I'm not sure what point you were building toward.
yeah, I'm not either. Like I don't know. I wish Pepper was in these movies more, I guess, is ultimately the point I'm making. I wish she was in these movies a little more than she is.
Agreed. But hey, Bruce and Tony are reunited, science bros back together, and I like that they gave him a hug. Bruce, more than most people, needs a hug.
What's our timeline? Yeah, I really like that Tony like he tells Doctor Strange later, like Thanos has been in my head for 6 years. He was kind of messed up. Like Iron Man 3 is all about like his trauma after dealing with that whole event in Avengers and accepting the fact that he's just a guy in a suit and there are aliens around and he was nowhere near prepared to deal with that and like they won but just by the skin of their teeth and like Thanos has really had a pretty severe, like one of the most severe effects in Tony's life, really since Tony got captured and put in that cave and became Iron Man.
Yeah.
And so like this is his
That's
big
why, like,
moment.
this whole yeah, and I really like this conversation. Sort of like, do we do we destroy the time stone? Could we even do that? Do we protect? And it's like Tony is already making the argument that Vision will later make about himself, and of course we find out that Tony has lost track of Vision. And I like that he points out like just how much Bruce has missed. Where it's like again, that's one of those things you don't really think about in the moment, especially me because I go back to Age of Ultron a lot. But it's like in the 2, 3, however many years it's been since Bruce was on Earth, like pretty much the entire status quo of the Avengers has shifted in multiple ways, and it's kind of hilarious just how out of the loop he is.
It's something I was definitely thinking about. Age of Ultron comes out in 2015, and Civil War came out just a year after that.
Just the next year, yeah. Oh yeah,
One
and
of
I
the
keep
one of
forgetting.
the biggest laughs this movie got is earlier in this scene where where Bruce says the Avengers just split up like a band, like the Beatles.
Beatles.
Like we don't
And
just
I
split
always
up. What the heck?
forget that we give Bruce a little line. Thor's gone. Like, yeah, like for the little line Bruce just had, like Thor's gone, Thanos is coming. It's like I forget that through a majority of this movie, Bruce thinks Thor is dead, and of course Tony, like, so close to calling Steve. And I don't know, how do you feel about the idea that if he had just let go and called Steve, that maybe a lot of these issues could have been avoided?
Um, I'm torn on it. I honestly am because like he hears some rattling, and that completely like takes his attention away from calling Steve. Like I don't know. Um,
Personally, think that he's looking for the reason not to.
yeah, he's maybe
Like,
he is looking for that reason, and that is within his character. So like maybe that's fine. Like I don't know. That's not really an issue. Um, but I do think that
I
question is
also
better.
love the
I do
shot.
think the question is better raised. How does this movie turn out if Tony decides to just steer the ship once he and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are all on it? How does this movie end if he chooses to turn around, go back to Earth, and find Steve?
Yeah, there are a lot. There are a lot of instances, as with many tragedies, where just what if they had made a different decision and it could have
Oh,
radically
this is
changed
great. The Spider
everything.
Sense thing.
But I really like. Yes, this is great. Are like 15, literally 15 seconds of Ned. It's amazing, and I was so glad
And
that.
of course, our we get a great Stanley cameo that I think is going to have like all his cameos now have an emotional impact that they didn't before because he's no longer with us.
Yeah, rest in peace, Stan the Man.
Wait for it. There he is.
But yeah, I just want to briefly talk about. And I love that he does, like, when he's about to swing off this bridge, like, you can barely see it because he's in the distance, but he does, like, the classic sort of Spider-Man, like, pose, like, in the air with, like, the knees bent and the arms splayed out, and it's, like, I love attention to detail like that.
So do I.
But
They
I
really
really,
get all these characters.
but I really wanted to talk about the brief shot, or, like, the sort of steady cam shot of
I love that wink
the
Doctor
four of
Strange
them
does.
going down the four of them going down the city block toward the big donut, where it's like a lot of people complain that these movies don't have enough civilian stakes, or they don't let us into like how this impacts everyday people enough. I feel like that one long take is a really good economic way to do that, where it's like we are not going to have time to dwell on like regular people and how they're reacting to this throughout this movie. So let's have a minute where it's like this spaceship coming down causes traffic issues. People are panicking. It's almost like a mini 9/11 again, where we've got like Tony and Strange and Wong and Banner have to stop a guy who's have to check on a guy who's like just crashed his car, who almost hit a lady. Like everyone's panicking and running away, and it's a really quick like, right, reminder. These are the civilians. The reason we do this.
I gotta ask you now that we're on this bit. How do you feel about Bruce having issues with the Hulk throughout this movie? I don't have an issue with it. My argument has always been that Hulk is just one. He's sick of only being called upon when Bruce is in danger or needs something, and
Mhm.
that he is scared of Thanos and his lackeys because he just got his butt handed to him faster than he ever has before.
I
That's
really,
always been
really
my
like
read on
it
it.
for the most part, especially conceptual.
Oh, hold on. This suit up seat is great.
Yeah,
This is so cool.
yeah.
He's finally at a point where he's
But
created
speaking,
like nanobots for his suit. Oh, that's amazing. Like that
it's
alone,
like just
Tony just suiting up and walking was a massive cheer moment in the theater.
yeah, like the constant evolution of the Iron Man armors throughout these movies has all been leading to this. It's like you almost cannot get better than this, and it's part of also what makes it like a lot of why the inevitable loss feels even heavier than it does is that like everyone is pretty much at their peak in this movie, particularly Tony, where
I
it's like
agree with that.
he
Well,
is
there's
up there
a
in
bit
his
towards the
suit.
end of this fight that I really don't like with Tony, and I'll talk about it when we get to it. But yeah, for the
Mm.
most part, everyone is as good as they possibly can be and doing their best in this movie.
I love that. How are we doing? Good, bad, really, really good, really good. But yeah, for the most part, I really like what we do with Bruce and Hulk. I think it'll ultimately how I feel about this whole thing will ultimately depend on how we conclude it with Endgame. I really want Bruce and Hulk to get their fair dues in Endgame because it feels like they haven't gotten the chance to shine as characters as much as they could since Age of Ultron. And a lot of people take that to mean like, oh, no one knows how to write this guy as good as Whedon could. But I don't know. I feel like if we look at the way that they pitched it, where Ragnarok is part one of a character arc, and this is part two, and Endgame will be the conclusion, like sort of a mini Hulk movie spread across three different movies, then it'll be really cool if they like stick the landing. I think for the most part, the character stuff with Bruce really works in this film. I think maybe we could have played him less comedically than we do. Like it feels like he is very comic reliefy in many scenes, but I don't
Yeah,
know. Like I for the
and that is the
part,
main complaint with him that I hear from a lot of people in this movie is that we just turn him into comic relief. And
but
I
again,
do understand that complaint with Ragnarok and with this movie. I understand it. I don't wholly share it, but I do understand that complaint.
and like I understand why he's like that because we make a point in Ragnarok. He's been Hulk for 2 years, possibly more than that, and it's really screwed up with his brain chemistry. Like if you compare Hulk to almost like being on a substance or
This is
something,
my favorite of Thanos' lackeys. He's really cool here.
yeah, he leaves the biggest impression.
He sure
But like
does.
I was saying, like if you compare being the Hulk almost to like being on a substance of some kind, this is still technically for Bruce the same weekend as Ragnarok. He's still just in the middle of a really, really bad Hulk hangover. And so part of what I look forward to in Endgame most is seeing some time pass and have him like reacclimate to being himself. So he's kind of past that awkward phase.
We haven't talked about this yet. I like Spider-Man in this movie a lot. He's my favorite Marvel character and my favorite superhero in general. But okay, wait, I have to
You
talk
talk
about this. I hate this bit with Iron Man like trapped here and like he would have died if Wong hadn't stepped in with that portal. I hate that.
what do you mean?
Like he gets trapped by that thing that he put on his arm. See, he breaks it off right there and then flies away.
Oh,
Wong, you're
oh,
invited to my
okay.
wedding. Like he could have used his boot jets and like moved out of the way. He could have unibeamed those things off. Like there's so many. Like I don't buy that Tony just like sits there and like just lays there on the ground for that monster to jump up and kill him. Like I
It
don't
all
know.
happens. I don't know. Smart
Tony is
guy,
very
but
smart,
everyone.
very especially how we handle him in action scenes in Iron Man 3 and even in Age of Ultron. Like I feel like he's like in the moment he can think enough on the fly to move out of the way. He's been doing this for a
Yeah, but
while.
I don't know. That's like a real thing to me. Plus, like,
This is great. Like his Iron Man. Well, I'm sorry, the Spider Armor suit here. This suit looks amazing. It looks
yeah.
way better than the comic Iron Spider suit.
Which, to be fair, that suit is now in Spidey PS4, and that game makes it look really good. To where it's like, okay, maybe I wouldn't mind seeing that in a movie, but
I still would not have liked that if
personally,
that
I
was the suit
prefer
he was
this
wearing in this
design.
movie. Maybe that's just me. I still would not like that they went with that suit in this film.
Yeah.
I
But
think
yeah,
the
just
MCU version looks a lot better.
going back to the point you were making, like, sure, Tony could have moved out of the way, but you also have to think in terms of we're trying not to waste any time in this movie. Like, we need to get the big guy, whose name I'm blanking on, Cole Obsidian. We need to get out of the scene Wong can do that. Like, Tony can move out of the way, sure, but at that point, you're just adding pointless seconds to the scene. And also, we talked over my favorite Spidey move in this movie, which was him swinging and webbing the taxi, the broken bit of the taxi in midair, doing like a little flip in the air, swinging it back down onto Co-op City, and that was great.
Yeah, that's a bit that I used in my tribute video for the Avengers
Yes,
movies, for the Marvel movies. I thought that was so
rightly so.
cool.
Like, and again, we talked about another shot that I've always been meaning to talk about, and yet never did, is when Tony blasts the truck back at Ebony Maw, and he just slices it open. And like, I really like the way that that shot is framed. Just like uh, it's sort of a wide shot. Wong and Strange on one side, Tony's like right in front of them. The car goes in Ma's direction. It's like it's really hard to talk about without just having the shot in front of me. But I really like the way it's framed. It's a
Now that
really
we're on
good
the Guardian scene, um,
face. This shot,
yeah,
this shot is also excellent.
this shot's really good. Um, the Russos, like, I feel like, direct all these scenes. It's almost like James Gunn came in and directed all these scenes. Like, that's how good the Russos
Yeah,
handled the Guardians in this movie.
and like Mantis doing her little head bob. Drax is asleep, Gamora's singing along, and Rocket's just bored.
And we haven't talked about this, so I feel like this would be a good place to do this. We know that James Gunn is actually coming back to direct Guardians 3, so that'll be interesting coming out of Endgame.
Yeah, really interesting to see everyone goes after these movies. But I don't know.
We have teenage Groot.
I like this whole interaction. It's so good. It's like if he doesn't pay up, then we take his ship. It's like Rocket's like exactly. Quill's like bingo, and then just when he looks at Gamora, and he's like, "No, I'm kidding."
Well, and what I like about that scene is I don't know if he's shaking her head no at Gamora as like, no, we're not ever gonna do that. We're morally better than that, or no, as in we actually are gonna do it. But I'm just shaking my head so that she doesn't catch an attitude with me for
Yeah,
being a bit of a
definitely.
delinquent. I think you can read that either way, and I kind of like that.
And this now, I believe, is actually the first footage of this movie that anybody saw. Is Thor landing on the ship and them waking him up?
Yeah, this was a this. I think this is how they
If
closed
I'm
out the
right,
very
this is
first
the
trailer
scene
that
that
we saw.
was initially screened.
Yeah, the first official trailer.
Yeah, I think that
This
because
scene
if
with
I
the big
recall,
tag at the end.
before any trailer, yeah, but like before any trailers dropped, this whole bit I think is what got shown at D23.
I saw the
Maybe
leaked trailer
led into
for.
another trailer.
Yeah, I saw the first trailer that they
I don't know.
showed
Maybe it
for
was.
this. I'm sorry, Nick. You keep cutting me off. What's up,
I think
Nick?
it might have been 23 or before then. I know that at some point, like the first bits that we heard about this movie were people coming out describing this whole scene. Like everything up to Thor waking up, I think. And just immediately, Thor turns around and it's a bunch of who are these weirdos?
Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but I think. Oh, I know this was definitely the case with the trailer that they showed. I think Thor Ragnarok hadn't come out yet, and in the trailer that they showed, he had
He
both
has
his
both.
eyes.
Yep, definitely. They really know what they're doing
They
with
really
the
do, yeah.
marketing team. Like I struggle to think of I struggle to think of a better, more clever marketing team than whoever Marvel Studios has on. But yeah, this whole bit, Zoe Saldana is also, I would give her the title of other MVP next to Hemsworth and Brolin. She is amazing in this movie. Like, I liked her a lot in Guardians 1 and 2, but this movie brings like something out of her that's just ooh, so good.
She gets a lot to
And
work with in this movie, and I was not expecting that going in.
yeah. And I speaking of Hemsworth, I really like how he's playing this whole sequence. Like again, he's being kind of jokey, but at the same time, the way that he's sort of projecting, it's like he's in shock. Like he's joking just because his brain is basically on autopilot. Like this right here, just him totally foregoing any kind of conversation, just like I need to take one of your pods, I'm leaving, I'm gonna go to Nivelier, I'm taking your food, whatever. It's like he's not even really in the moment with these guys.
Yeah, he doesn't
His
even want to process what he just went through and losing his brother.
yeah, his brain is still back on that ship. It's weird. I missed that because everybody had laughed so hard over you're imitating the God Man every time I watch this. I keep missing when Drax says it's weird.
Oh, I watched this movie so many times, like after it came out in theaters, that um, I was able to get all the jokes. And even then, like I think it was my third, maybe my fourth viewing of this movie in theaters. I was able to catch all the jokes because the movie had been out for a while, and most people
Mm,
had already seen it and were just seeing it a second time, and so they were still laughing, but just not as loudly.
yeah. And so again, as people have Thor takes all of the food here, and this is the ship that Tony and Nebula will eventually be on in Endgame. And so Thor is indirectly responsible for Tony and Nebula almost running out of food.
Oh, I don't think Nebula needs food.
Yeah. So Tony kind of gets the short end of the stick there.
Yeah,
But yeah, so here he mentions that Xandar got decimated, and that's really like him saying that and then cutting to the Guardians' faces is like, oh no, what? That I think is such a short, like it's two shots, and it's way more powerful than if we had been in the scene with Thanos showing up and like destroying Xandar and stuff.
yeah.
Like that would have
Especially
taken
because
like a
there's no
couple
one that
minutes.
we're really super emotionally attached to that's on Xandar. Like Xandar's
Yeah.
a big part of
So like
the Guardians' first movie. That's where the epic climax happens, and they save that whole world. So it means a lot for them that Thanos
yeah,
just destroyed that world and took the stone.
yeah, so their reaction gets us more than like a couple of minutes of screen time spent on that kind of prologue would have.
Absolutely.
And
And
also,
I like
he's not quite
all the back and forth with Rocket and Thor here. I think it's great.
yeah. Bradley Cooper's not quite one of the MVPs of this movie, but he's giving a great vocal performance as this character as always.
Um, for sure. And I really like all the pair ups that the Russos decided to go with in this movie. Like Rocket
Yeah,
and Thor. Like that's it's such an inspired choice.
yeah, it's not like an obvious thing. And see, okay, this, oh boy, I'm like Thor is not thinking straight, and so he is forgiven, I think, for how terrible this plan is. And but I think like Rocket is the one who suggests Thor and I will go get the hammer, and the morons will go and try to stop Thanos. I think that is a terrible idea,
I don't
and
agree
Rocket
with
is
that
going
at
to
all,
feel
but okay.
so.
I don't
Okay,
agree with that
elaborate on that.
because I don't know. I don't agree with that because Thor just tried to fight Thanos and failed miserably. He saw Hulk try to fight Thanos and fail miserably. Like he knows at this point that fighting Thanos is a losing battle unless they can get some kind of upper hand.
Right? No, that fine. Where he then says, "Okay, the rest of the team go and try to stop Thanos from getting the Reality Stone while we do that." It's like, no, why would you not all go together, or at least suggest that the team lay low until you've got the weapon? Like he
I don't think
basically sends
Gamora
them.
would be willing to do that. Like, I don't think there is. I mean, and again, Thor doesn't know her well enough to make that kind of judgment call. But I don't think there's any talking Gamora into sitting around or going with them to get Thor's axe when she wants to go and try to stop Thanos.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just I if I'm Rocket and I'm like Thanos already has 2 Infinity Stones, I do not then suggest that the rest of my team slash family go and try and stop him before we've got the weapon we need. That just feels like a weird choice on his part. But this, okay, again, speaking to common complaints, and like it is fair to say that time passes in between these movies and it would have maybe been more impactful had we gotten to spend like a couple of years or an extended period of time watching Wanda and Vision have like their relationship grow from where it was in Civil War. And yet we get here and they have just such chemistry and I buy it. Like I have no issues with it.
So do I. I think this really works. And I think hints of the accent are still there, but it would make sense that she would lose it when she's been out of Sokovia and in America for so long.
Yeah. And like people really get on the case about the accent and it's like paying
No,
enough
like
attention to it.
I
Yes,
buy
her
that.
accent is way less pronounced than in
Oh,
it's way less than Age of Ultron and Civil War, and yet it's also not Elizabeth Olsen's natural accent. So it is clearly a choice on the part of her and like the movie makers.
I think so too. And like that is a thing. Like foreign people who stay in other parts of the world after they come in America and they've lived here so long and they adopt our language and culture, they will kind of like just naturally lose their accent.
Yeah. And
But Vision just getting stabbed here and getting hurt. This is really important because as of right now, like on Earth, Vision and Wanda are the most powerful characters, and you have to find a way to depower Vision for this movie. You have to, um, because he's not on the same level as Superman, but um, like he's pretty darn he's super powerful. Like until Captain Marvel comes in, like he and Wanda are like the most powerful characters that we have so far.
Yeah, and just because he's been like a supporting character in all these movies, and this is the one where he dies, I would have preferred if he got a little bit more of a showcase for that power before we depower him. Like this fight scene is good, but I'd have liked to see like Vision unleash like a little bit before that happened. Like maybe have him be at the top of his game during this fight, and then like somewhere in the middle of the fight he gets stabbed, and then like he's significantly weaker. But I don't know. Just that's just the part of me that's like, I really like Vision. A lot of people complain too much that he didn't really get to do anything and that he was useless throughout this movie. I would have liked to see him like be that Superman kind of thing for at least a scene. We
Yeah,
just don't really get any of it.
that
And it's like I
that was a
get why we
mistake. I will
and
go as
again,
far as to say that was a mistake for this movie. They should have in this
but
in the beginning of this fight scene, we should have got to see him showcase his power more before we took it
yeah,
away.
and again, it is sort of the same complaint or like the same reasoning that I was making for your Iron Man complaint, where it's like you you gotta make things happen. Like precious seconds of screen time in this movie.
That's understandable.
And
Yeah. Oh, this
yeah,
this Captain America entrance, man.
so good. So good.
Boom!
Like that
Catches
looks
the
like
spear.
a
Another massive cheer moment.
like him in silhouette, like as the train leaves, that could be a comic panel. Like a lot of this stuff could, but that's just such an iconic image. And Sam shows up. Sam gets to be cool.
Now
It's
I
great.
don't know if you'll agree with this. I think the use
And
of the Avengers theme here is misplaced. This is the one bit of score in the entire movie that I feel like does not belong here.
I wouldn't go so far as to say it doesn't belong here. I would have saved it for when we've got like more of the team together or a bigger sort of group together. It
Yeah.
feels a bit odd to have it like it's we open it when Cap gets in. It's like I know we've been very inconsistent about individual character themes across this franchise, so Cap doesn't really have a theme to himself,
He really doesn't.
but it feels weird that the scene basically treats the Avengers theme as if it were Captain America's theme. And it's no, like save that theme for when we've got the Avengers.
Yeah,
Like
this
right
should
now
have
we're
been
still
an
very
original, a
the
wholly
teams.
original score for this scene instead of just reusing that theme. It's
Again,
the
I'm
only
gonna
it's the only
basically
time that I'm ever really taken out of the movie because I feel like that score just shouldn't be there.
yeah. It's and ooh. Yeah, so like I'm gonna say this for a lot of people, but Chris Evans, not MVP of this movie, and yet still doing so many great little acting things. Like the way that he says home when he's like, where are we going? Or when he sees Vision and like you can tell it's been a while since these guys saw each other. The last time we saw them, they were on opposite sides. And yet Cap gives this little smile, and it's like, yeah, these two have a really great mutual respect. Like Cap likes Vision, and they don't need to have any sort of like makeup or any kind of words between them. It's just like they understand each other. And this scene, oh boy, this I for a while back when we were just going off trailers,
Hmm.
I expected that this would be the opening scene. Like I thought we would do kind of what we did with Black Panther and Ragnarok and stuff, where the prologue scene is like a distant prologue that will then become relevant to the body of the movie. And I thought we were going to open with this, and then Thanos takes Gamora, and then we cut to the Marvel logo. And I like the way that we handle it here. I still think it wouldn't have been bad to have done it like that.
Um, they,
Like
they want
opening with
to they want to hit you like emotionally with some characters you're invested in already, and they want you to really, really be taken by Thanos as a villain. So I understand
yeah.
like why they opened the movie the way they did. And I don't think you would really have that if you do this scene first. Well, I mean, you would have that, but I mean, like just opening the movie.
The thing is, this scene is sort of humanizing for Thanos,
Yeah.
where like we see him and Gamora connect, and it really comes down to: do you want to open the movie with Thanos is a layered, three-dimensional, humanized character, or do you want to open the movie with Thanos is a force of nature who is like the personification of dread for the rest of these characters? And so it makes sense that if you want to open with the feeling of dread, then you choose the scene to open with that you did. And again, this scene is great.
Yeah, I
Like,
really like their relationship. I don't know if I like that she I mean, I understand why she does it and it makes like everything like character-wise makes sense. I just as a viewer am having a hard time with her saying, "Please kill me, promise to kill me."
why so?
Um it like she loves him. She knows that he loves her. That's a lot to ask of someone that
It
you're
is,
in love with.
it is, but these are dire, dire, dire circumstances. And
And I'm,
besides,
I'm
the
not even
fact that she
saying
loves him so much is why
I'm not saying it's an issue
that she
or that they should
trusts to
have done
do this.
anything differently. So don't misunderstand me, Nick. I'm not saying that it's an issue or that the writer should have had her do something different than what she does here. I'm just saying I'm like, no, don't ask him to do like I'm just me as a viewer. I'm like, don't ask
Uh,
the man that you love to kill you.
yeah, and I love that. Again, he's trying to deflect everything with jokes, and she's like, "No, this is serious. Swear to me on your mother that you will do this."
Like
And
I really like that moment. That's like a okay, no, this is 100% serious. I'm taking this seriously. I will do this for you.
also another in the little lines that are permeating through the movie. Of course, he's the one who asks her, "Why does someone always have to die in this scenario?" Where like Gamora has kind of accepted something that no one else in this movie has yet, which is that there is no way, seemingly, to beat Thanos where everyone gets out all right. She's
Mhm.
like, if it comes to that, I am willing to die. It has to happen. And Quill, as we will see with a lot of the Avengers and specifically Steve later on, has the sort of like we don't trade lives approach, and that is going to bite him in the ass.
Yes, it will. Like Cap is someone who's always like standing by his morals, but those morals are not without consequence, and I really like that.
And the invisible Drax scene always gets a laugh and is confirmed by the Russos the big thing that James Gunn like specifically added into the movie himself. Like not as like a supervisor, as like he put in that scene of like invisible Drax.
That is great. Yeah, I am really glad that we have him coming back to continue this franchise, um, in whatever
Yeah,
form it will, because we don't know which of them are coming back in Endgame. But whoever does come back, it's nice that he'll be continuing it.
yeah. And it's like this movie is rightfully very controversial with some camps, not in like the sense of like a lot of people who dislike this movie dislike it, I think, for understandable reasons of just if you read it to its fullest conclusion, it's kind of um a very dark, bleak, unpleasant movie in terms of what it's saying. And I think that's part of the appeal, where it's like we have Thanos who is just pure willpower, and he thinks he's doing things for the right reasons, like a lot of the best villains do.
Hmm.
But the movie, in letting him win, ultimately comes down on the side of might makes right. Like a lot of superhero narratives are inherently that to begin with, but this movie is making the choice to come out and say Thanos wins because his willpower supersedes moral rightness. His willpower supersedes like love and connection and the friendships that these people have. And Movie Bob made a really interesting video about how like that's pretty much breaking movie rules and especially like superhero movie rules in
Yeah,
pretty
we
much
expect the good guy
all.
to always win.
Yeah, like that's I think you're about to make this point, but like in all 18 of the previous Marvel movies, there's basically been this sense of cosmic justice where like if the characters learn the right lessons, if they make the
Oh,
right
that's
friendships,
so funny. Like
and the
sleep.
way that they all duck down, like it's like little kids being caught by an angry parent. It's like they all try to hide away.
It feels like a Scooby Doo moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good comparison. You go right, no, the other right. But yeah, like this is just a really, really dark, kind of mean movie thematically in the context of like, there is no cosmic justice. You make a lot of characters in this movie make mistakes, and we will get to those when we get to those. But for the most part, they make a lot of the right choices in terms of they prioritize morality, they prioritize emotional connection, they value their friendships, they act out of love, and yet this guy who was willing to eschew all of that wins anyway, just because in the end, he was stronger than all of them internally.
This is a great
And
moment here, where like
yeah,
she knows that she has to kill this guy, but like this guy did essentially raise her, and
there
it,
are a
it
lot of ways to read it.
like she
One
just
of them
breaks
is
down
like
and
you're
cries
suggesting.
after she thinks she's killed him, and like on a
Yeah, and
first
some
viewing,
people have
everyone in the theater is so perplexed because they know this can't be where Thanos actually dies. So like, did you really just kill him in this scene? Like, what the heck is going on?
see, like I never had that because I knew that they were coming after the Reality Stone, so I immediately assumed, okay, that's a fake Thanos or something. I
Okay.
didn't assume that the entire scenario had been faked. That was a bit of a surprise. And like the collector is fake. Where's the real one? Is he dead? What happened? But yeah, like I knew that there was no way that was actually Thanos as soon as he got stabbed. I
Yeah.
will say though, a lot of people have different reads on that on her sort of like breaking down and crying. And again, some of the people who really dislike this movie dislike it for suggesting that like love can exist in this really toxic, abusive relationship. And I think that ultimately just comes down to the fact that love is way more complicated than anyone assumes it is. And it is sort of a nice notion to think that because a relationship is abusive, that means that it and love are mutually exclusive. I think it's more complicated than that. I
Now,
think
the first time I saw this, I was surprised that like when I first saw this, I thought that they died right there in that moment and that he killed them.
I thought
Um,
Drax died and she's blinking. Then I was like, okay, they're all right.
I didn't take that as she's
So yeah,
all right.
we'll
I thought
talk
that
more
was just
about this
like,
because
go ahead, Nick.
we'll talk more about the point I was making later because it is like the crux of another big scene. But right now, Quill's got to take the shot, and
Oh,
this moment,
this is one of the most powerful moments in the movie.
straight up, like it is so heavy. Ugh, like Zaldana's performance, Pratt's performance, it's ooh. This is like Pratt. I hesitate to say that he's one of the MVPs, but in this scene, he is really like ooh. I can't even put it to words. He's so good, and like
It's
again,
crazy to think that this is a guy who had no aspirations of being an actor. He was just picked to be an actor one day and decided to do it, and it just ended up being his
it's even
career.
it's even crazier if you're me. It's even crazier if you're me and my family because we are watching through Parks and Rec together, like the past couple of weeks, and we're in season 2, and so it's like how like the range that this guy has, and like as far as we know, this is
Wait,
the
this is the
first time
moment.
that they've
It bubbles, just
yep,
bubbles.
and like you want to laugh because it's bubbles and it's ridiculous, but look at his face. Like again, people are gonna get on Quill's case for choices that he makes in this movie. Right then, he made the morally right choice. He was going to sacrifice his love for the good of the universe. And Thanos, because he can literally break reality rules and movie rules, just rips that away from him just as a cruel joke. And now Peter is basically psychologically adrift throughout the rest of this movie because in his mind, he made the choice to kill her, and it's like what does that do to a person? Like he's gonna lose his balls and attack Thanos later in a way that like ruins everybody's plans, and people are gonna harp on him for that. But he is past this scene. He is officially not in his right mind. He just had to do something that was like psychologically breaking how heavy it was for him, and it didn't even have the intended result. It's really, really tragic.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's why like I'm not one of the many people like when people lob like that's the big thing that everyone like lobs criticism at is Cool's decision to just start hitting Thanos and mess up their chance to get the gauntlet off.
It makes perfect perspective. Like you can be frustrated with the character for making that choice, but it is not bad writing. It is a very, very deliberately built to earned moment.
Yeah, that's a very character driven moment.
And here we have again little lines like, okay, so apparently someone did a line count. Steve has less lines of dialogue in this movie than he does in Spider-Man: Homecoming, counting the post-credit scene, which I for one find hilarious. But it also means that the lines we do give him are that much more impactful. And so he says, "Earth just lost her best defender," talking about Tony. And so it's like that one line is like it's the only reference to Tony that Steve has in this movie, and it's just nothing but respect. He's like, Tony was the Earth's greatest defender, and now he's gone, so
Yeah,
we have to fill his shoes.
and I
And
love
like
that
Rhodey, like
because they didn't end things on a good note at the end of Civil War. Like we get that letter, and so like Tony knows that Steve is always there and is willing to extend an olive branch, but like Tony isn't there yet, and so
yeah, and
but on the
who's
other side, like Steve still has all the respect in the world for Tony.
as the one person I know who's like really, I really like Bruce and Natasha as a pairing. It was nice to have that little nod. I hope we do more stuff with them in Endgame. But as to quote Marcus and McFeely, the movie is moving too fast for love. Again, it all comes down to precious seconds of screen time. We got to choose what we're spending it on.
Yeah, and I didn't notice it at all until this viewing. But if you look at the bits taken out of Cap's costume, you'll see the scales that he'll have in Endgame, like the classic comic book, like scaly suit.
Yes.
That is so cool. I did not notice that before.
And okay, this is interesting. I'm wondering if this is just a one-off weird thing or if it's going to pay off in Endgame somehow. But I was always kind of interested in that line read from Bruce where he's like, Thanos isn't going to stop until he gets Vision's stone. And he like pauses like he's having a PTSD moment just talking about Thanos. And I'm like, I don't know, that's an interesting thing, is like another really quick way of saying like just meeting Thanos once and having Hulk get beat down has screwed up Bruce a lot to where he's like having trouble just speaking about the guy.
And like I like this whole conversation that Steve and Vision are having here, like the issue of sacrifice and like whether or not that's the right thing. The one person versus the whole population, like that whole moral quandary.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah.
And again, Bruce comes in with a really interesting talk about like what Vision is. It's like I was questioning, like, could you take out the stone and have Vision still be like who he is? And it's like he's a mix of Bruce and Tony and Ultron and the stone, and it's a whole bunch of different personalities, Jarvis, that came together to make the unique being that is Vision. And like he's not a machine, he's a living creature. And
so smart for them to release Black Panther right before this movie, and like the cultural impact it had. Boom, Wakanda.
It's
like again just another big cheer moment. That movie like became a cultural phenomenon like overnight. Like it was insane.
You hear that theme start? Yeah, it's like when you hear the Wakanda theme start, it's like seeing Queens and Civil War all over again. It's like you know what that is. You don't even need to be told it's coming, and the crowd just immediately, when Steve is like, I know somewhere, like I know a place, it's like, everyone immediately like, yes, yes. And Bucky looking very skinny, or maybe that's just the lack of an arm. I don't know. He looks way skinnier than I'm used to seeing him.
I don't know. I don't think he really looks skinny.
And like I always have this. There hasn't been a single viewing of this movie where I'm not like, oh right, Doctor Strange, because it's been so long since the New York fight. It feels like so much has happened in between Strange getting taken and where we are now.
I got to talk about this scene real quick now that we're on it. This was a big thing in the second trailer. This guy torturing Doctor Strange was a big bit in the trailer, and we don't get those shots in this movie. But that I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
you show what you need to show to sell the movie the best way you think you could, but you use the footage that you need to tell the story in the best way possible.
yeah, and actually, I'm not sure because I think I know the shots you're talking about. I'm pretty sure they are here. Like this one right here, that was one that was in one of the trailers. Just the side view of his face while the thing is going in. And then we have him screaming. Oh yeah, him screaming. I guess it's not there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great...
Him screaming like that is not there.
Yeah.
Neither is, and like in the trailer, he's shushing him as he's screaming. But in this movie, the shush moment comes way earlier when he traps Thor with all that debris.
Yeah. And here Peter has shown up and he and Tony are having classic father-son moment.
Okay, hold on for a second. This line right here. You can't save you can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. And then he says that doesn't really make sense, but you know what I'm trying to say? No,
It
that
makes
line
sense.
makes sense, and I really don't like that he said that.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that
my
line
least
really
favorite line.
works.
It com-
That line really works.
yeah, like it comes off really insecure. It comes off really insecure on the part of the writers. It's like if I could delete one line from this whole movie, that would be it.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, he's not really my friend. And
So funny.
I love that because by the end, I feel like they are friends, or at least something close to it.
Yeah.
Like stuff will have like their relationship progresses in little ways throughout this movie, and it's not like dwelled on. Here we have the spider legs. Yep, yep. There
There
they
we go.
are. And I've always
What are
liked
those?
the four. I've always liked the four spider legs as opposed to three spider legs.
Oh. And like I
And
get why we get rid of him. But he was the coolest of Thanos lackeys. Kind of sucks that we don't have him for the rest of this movie.
his presence will be missed.
Yeah. Oh, I love this line so much. Who just saved your magical ass? Me.
Me.
I seriously don't understand how you fit your head in that helmet.
We are now in a flying donut.
We're now in a flying donut. Just so many great like all the
What
comedy in
is
this
he?
movie. Not all of it is played for laughs. A lot of it is just snarky banter, and that also really works.
Yeah. Just like I don't know, I really like this. This is like again talking about like interesting choices for character pairings. Like pairing Iron Man and Strange seems like a natural thing to do considering how similar they are.
Yeah,
Throwing Peter in the middle of that is a really sort of nice little monkey wrench in that dynamic.
it is.
And
And then
again,
that
here we
that
go.
trauma from the first Avengers coming back to haunt Tony as he tells Doctor Strange about it. I really like that.
Yeah, and it's like it's not like it's coming back now. Like this has been almost Tony's defining trauma since that movie. It's
Yeah,
what it's haunting him all throughout Iron Man 3. It's the reason he makes Ultron, which in turn leads to Civil War. It's like everything Tony has done for the past several movies, several years that we've known this character has been leading to an inevitable confrontation with Thanos. And so I feel like that is influenced like let's not go back to Earth. Let's just meet Thanos, take him out ourselves, get this over with. I'm sick of having to deal with this guy and the constant repercussions of like him these
I love
stupid.
this moment. I loved this moment on first viewing, but it really doesn't make sense because there are no Avengers. Really, the Avengers are a done thing. Like the OG Avengers, like half of them are on the run, like Cap, uh, Falcon, Widow. Like most of them are on the run, and then the others are just like disbanded. Like there is no, even though this movie is called Avengers: Infinity War, it's really just pretty much all the major players in the Marvel universe try to stop Thanos the movie. Like
Yeah,
it's
but
not a thing anymore.
yeah, but
So when he says you're
I
an Avenger now, like no, you're not. Like the team doesn't exist anymore.
I think you're reading too. I think Tony just says that because he knows what significance it has for Peter.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it still works. I was not expecting us to spend I mean, once we got the flashback scene with Gamora, I was expecting us to get more Gamora scenes like with her and Thanos. Um, but this really works. This really helps flesh out Thanos as a character, their relationship.
Yeah. Again, the two actors are really. We haven't talked yet about how spectacular of an effect Thanos is. Like, I always believe he's in the room. Like, he's just, oh, so good.
Yeah, he's the
And, like,
most.
he has,
Go ahead, Nick.
there's this little thing that he's about to do when Gamora, like, tells him something. He does something with his face when she's like, you don't know that. Like, it's coming in a minute. And he just has this little movement with, like, his head where it's like, that's the thing that makes you like, he is literally certifiably insane. Like, he has the body language of someone who's just mentally far gone and is not willing to listen to reason. Like, there, he just did it. Like, little ticks like that inform his character a lot for me. Such a good performance.
Well, it's all Josh Brolin. Every single nuance he has is captured and put into this character.
Mm.
And I do want to credit a lot of big special effects films for getting us to this place. Um, the first Transformers, um, really the first three Transformers films, all of them, like the robots always looked real. They always looked like they were there. Um, of course, the Planet of the Apes, the recent Planet of the Apes movies, the first Avatar
Yeah.
film, like real giant strides in CGI.
And like motion captured characters have always been like some studios really been like pioneering. Like again, in just this movie, we got Hulk, who has always looked like spectacular since Avengers. We have Rocket, who always looks like he's in the room, and Groot. It's like they're really, really, really good. And this effect, this is ooh.
This is really cool.
And like this scene is one where like again, people who dislike this movie will come to scenes like this where it's like, well, I like Nebula, and I don't want to watch her scream in agony and be tortured by her abusive father for a whole scene. And it's like, I sort of take the movie on those terms where it's like, yeah, that's dark. It's incredibly dark. It's uncomfortable. Like some people, because of like their own trauma, had to leave the theater during this moment just because it was so uncomfortable. It's like that I think is to this movie's strength. It's like this is the one where we're gonna go all out and it's like it's just oppressive, the atmosphere.
Um,
Like
like
Thanos is the guy who is to go that far to get what he wants.
and maybe it's because we just implied it more, but I don't know. I feel like this is dark, and maybe this is like the inner like horror fan in me that is just desensitized to a lot of this kind of stuff. But like, I don't know. Like this is dark for these kinds of movies, but I feel like this is pretty tame. Like I don't feel
Well,
like this is so bad to where people need to leave the theater.
again, it's not like it's hmm, the context of their relationship. It's also just everyone reacts to things differently. And that's not just like you being desensitized because of the kinds of media that you watch. It's people's real life traumas informing how they view movies. And like some people walk into movies where like torture scenes happened or any kind of like psychological torture, even because that's also what's happening in this scene. And it's just like, again, this is just a really heightened, really sci-fi case of domestic abuse. And like I can see being someone who suffered from domestic abuse and just being made super uncomfortable by this.
This scene is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And this
Yep.
this is where I'm like, okay, Thor is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters in the franchise just with this movie.
Yeah, this is scene that makes Hemsworth an MVP of this movie for me. And like again, we're also informing Rocket's character so perfectly. Or it's
And
like
like
time has
it's
passed
interesting
since our
because you go to the first Thor film and the first Avengers film, and just seeing the progression, like he's a very different person than what he is now, and like he has
yeah,
become like more jokey in general, and I think that comes from both a natural character place and from the place of like, okay, Thor's movies, he's not really all that engaging in his own movies, really, and so we need to spice that up, and so that's
well
what Taika Waititi did with Ragnarok.
the thing is again, it all comes down to him using the humor as a deflection for his pain and his loss, because in his first movie, like he's engaging enough there as he loses Loki, like a brother who he loves but kind of took for granted and he thinks is dead. His and in the first Avengers, he finds out Loki's alive. He's kind of trying to keep a handle on him. For the most part, up until the Dark World, he's kind of got everything made. Like he's the golden boy. He's patched things up with his dad. He has his dad. He has his mom, and he keeps losing people from that point forward. And like Dark World is hardly a great movie. It's one of the, if not the weakest MCU movie. But his reaction to losing his mom, that does hit me. And then he loses Odin. He just lost Loki. He lost Heimdall. He had to give up his home. He had to learn all of this really hard stuff about like Odin's legacy. And now that brings him here, where he's like, he just can't deal with it anymore. And he's about to come to tears, but he's like, nope, can't feel the pain, can't let myself feel it. Time to make jokes and focus my attention purely on killing this one guy, because if I can kill him, then everything will be okay.
Um, and the Russos talk about how they didn't like Taika's decision to take out Thor's eye and give him the whole eye patch and everything because it's really restrictive for Hemsworth as an actor and he's so expressive. So like even in these scenes, like they put dots around his face and just threw in the eye patch later.
And it's ironic because he has the eye patch in that scene, and in the, like that moment is just I can't do it enough service. Like that whole conversation was really, really spectacular.
It's really good. Yeah.
And I know
And
some who walked out of that scene because they had to use the bathroom and they came back when it was over, and they were discussing it later with friends, and their friends were like, "Ah, you really didn't miss anything," and I'm like, dude, you missed such a powerful emotional scene. It was whatever.
I never do that when I'm watching a movie. Never. Like to just get up and use the bathroom, that's a big no no for me. And a lot of that is because like I often like being an adult, I go see movies with my own hard earned money now, and I'm not about to walk out and miss a scene on a movie that I paid for.
Yeah, but bladders. That's
I've held my scene for an entire viewing of this movie before.
mm. And I know a couple confused by what we're about to see. We're like, they see the mold for the gauntlet and they thought, wait, was that another gauntlet? And I'm like, I know it can be hard sometimes with the amount of like sheer information that's packed into this movie, but they're telling you very obvious things.
E Tree,
Yep.
big. I know you don't watch. Well, actually, I don't know that you don't watch it, but I would assume you definitely don't watch Game of Thrones. He's a big Game of Thrones
You were
guy.
wrong. You were wrong in that assumption.
I'm wrong. Oh, okay. So you know this guy from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And unfortunately also Pixels and Days of Future Past.
So
But
how
yeah, he
excited for you?
tends to be.
How excited were you to see him in this movie? Because just before this movie came out, it was revealed that he was in it, but they didn't reveal the role of his character.
I was less excited and more for that reason. Like I had no idea who he would be, and so I'm like, huh. I guess I'll just have to wait and see if he's a big role, a small role. I don't know, but I'm sure they'll give him stuff to do. And yeah, I was satisfied with the role they gave him.
Yeah, it's really fun, and he does get one of the best jokes later on in the movie when
Yeah.
Thor's like, "It'll only kill me if I die." And he's like, "That's what killing you means."
And that's just mean. Thanos just taking his hands. Like, come on, man. You didn't have to do that.
This moment right here is what makes me think that Thor will be successful in taking down Thanos.
Yep. The whole movie
Yeah,
is structured in such a way where it's like Thor is sort of the yin to Thanos' yang, where we're slowly building to if anyone's going to take him out, it's got to be Thor. And when we get to the end of the movie, up until like the very last minute, you think he's got it. But nope, should have
and,
gone for the head.
and Joe Russo talked about that in a really good interview for Endgame that I just watched. He's like, yeah, it's a kind of a dual protagonist film for Thanos and Thor. And in that moment, when Thanos does the snap, it fully becomes Thanos' movie. Like he is the victor, he is the protagonist, he is one.
Yep.
He had a goal, he achieved it.
Mm. Yeah, not so from. Oh wait, no one's driving.
So they're not successful in operating this vehicle at all, or this spacecraft at all.
Yep. Oh gosh. Not exactly the road trip that they had planned, but whatever.
This is all just gorgeous. Titan looks really cool.
This movie is really visually gorgeous.
I think the pop culture references are fun. I like that we kind of have this kind of interesting like constant gag with Peter where he's doing pop culture references for everything.
Yeah. Like that, yeah, like, okay, just stop. And here we go, finally, a little bit of half of the Guardians kind of meeting half of, not the Avengers, but other.
It's got a lot of interesting action going on.
Yeah, I like that. Like it is kind of a one-sided fight, just because Mantis and Drax are not suited to fighting Iron Man and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, but Peter kind of manages to hold his own anyway, just because of how clever he is.
Yeah,
Oh boy, here we go.
another one of the great jokes.
Why is Gamora?
uh, like that and I Am Steve Rogers might be the two biggest laughs in this movie.
Yeah. I will say, I am slightly disappointed that we never did a thing like acknowledging the two Peters. Like we have a whole bit where Spidey's like, "I'm sorry, I can't remember anybody's names," and I'm like, "It's really ironic because one of them is just your name. Did they not do like formal introductions at any point?"
Well, Star Lord. He refers to himself as Star Lord, not Peter Quill.
Yeah, but like they call him Peter sometimes. I love his face. I love his face when he's like, "We know Thor, tall guy, not that good looking." Peter's like, "What? Have you seen him?"
So Stormbreaker is an interesting is an interesting like weapon for Thor to have in the Ultimate comics. As far as I can remember, because I only read the first three, maybe four volumes of Ultimates, which is essentially the Avengers in the Ultimate Universe in the comics. Thor was a lot more vulnerable than he typically is in 616 and in these movies. Um, and he was using Stormbreaker there instead of Mjolnir.
Mantis jumping around, being hilarious. It's adorable. Have you seen like that one edit that's going around on the internet of like the even goofier edit of this scene with like SpongeBob music in the background and like little narration for what's going on in everybody's heads as
No.
it's like I gotta send it to you. It's hilarious. It's like all of these like really weird zoom ins and just like Tony gets surrounded by question marks as he has this little existential crisis of like, oh my god, who am I dealing with? Who are these people? How did I get here? Like he's questioning every decision he's ever made in his life in that moment.
Like these are just really fun pair ups.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of makes this movie feel like Avengers all over again.
Yeah. It's like with Age of Ultron and Civil War, we'd kind of grown accustomed to these characters interacting, but now it's like just weird pairings that no one had assumed. Like no one would assume that you would do that. That's 100% you.
Your math is blowing my mind. Like, and I was really against the idea of this movie being as jokey as it is, but it really works. Like,
Well, yeah, like
there's no reason that like this can't be kind of your kind of your typical Marvel movie when Thanos isn't there.
yeah, like it makes sense for these characters.
Yeah, and so all the comedy is working because it's not undercutting any of the real drama.
Mm.
And I was
Just
afraid of
one.
that with this movie.
This movie is so gorgeous. Like a lot of it is digital, yeah, whatever. It looks so pretty.
Boromir. Yeah, it really does. Oh, now that we're on Boromir, I guess we'll get to it, but um, Red Skull. Nothing about Red Skull in this movie actually makes any sense, but it's a fun Easter egg, and we all loved it on first viewing.
I still love it. I don't care if it makes sense. I don't know why the Tesseract would like bring him up here. I guess like the Soul Stone needed a guardian and there was no one else available, so it's like this guy could learn a lesson. Let's just bring him up, force him to be like near a stone, but he can't take it. Fine. Whatever, who cares? I love that he's here. This is great.
This is awesome, especially if like you are a big MCU fan and like you know all these movies fairly well and like you recognize Red Skull and like you know who he is and you're not just a regular Joe Schmo who's just seeing this movie for the first time with no context.
Yeah. But okay, here we go. Again, this scene, you can argue that this sequence is like the crux of this movie, in that Thanos and Gamora are the two characters with the most screen time in this film. They're kind of the ones with the most sort of emotional stake in it. And this is like their relationship in a nutshell, the turning point of the movie. This is the big moment, and I think it's what kills it for a lot of people who sort of can't get past the idea that it's asking us to sympathize with an abuser, or that the real big issue that some people have is just like, okay, take the movie on its own terms. the thing says you have to sacrifice what you love, and the universe will grant you the Soul Stone. And it happens. So that is the universe, like essentially God, in the context of this movie's reality, saying what Thanos feels for Gamora is absolutely some form of love. And some people can't get past that as a message that this movie is telling people. And I can understand that, because to have a movie that's seen by so many and is, in all other respects, a very accessible sort of big movie, definitely not a feel good movie, but in kind of a franchise that's known for those, to say that, hey, you can be super abusive and spend a lifetime like training your daughter to be a weapon and treating her like a tool essentially, and you'll still be rewarded because deep down you really do love her. That is kind of problematic. At the same time,
I
I
don't
think
agree at all. I don't think it's problematic because the movie is not glorifying Thanos or his choices.
it's not, but some people take umbrage with the fact that, like, some people think it's going too far to suggest that what Thanos feels is actually love at all. And I can understand that even if I don't agree with it. I think it's kind of, again, love is a complicated thing that I don't think anyone will ever be able to completely define. The way I define it, I think, as harsh as it can be to accept, there are forms of love that exist that are not positive. And I think that what Thanos feels for Gamora is a very negative, very sort of warped, twisted form of love, but still love. And that's why he gets it. And I think that's a hard thing for some people to accept. Because it's easier, especially again, if you're someone who, like a lot of people do, is coming from a place of having suffered real domestic abuse and psychological abuse and gaslighting and manipulation from people. It's just it's more comforting and it's easier to think that that and love have to be two mutually exclusive things, and that you can't have one with the other. And unfortunately, I just don't think that that's the reality of the situation. I think that you can have a relationship where love is present, and yet it's ultimately a very toxic, wrong, not good relationship that is harmful to both parties or even just to one party. And that's what this is.
Um, I just I'm giving you a mental round of applause, man. Like that was really well said.
Thank you. And oh boy, yeah, and it's also, that aside, the reason why my mom refuses to watch this movie, because oh, it's just it hurts. It hurts. This is so ooh, and cut away, because if we keep the camera on her, that will get us an R rating.
Um,
And bro, performance, it's just I don't care. This scene is spectacular. I don't care, man.
yeah, it's really good, and they fade away, which I think is an interesting choice. Because
Mhm.
as I was watching this scene, I was expecting like it's a cut like the millisecond before she hits the ground, and it cuts back to Thanos' face, and we hear like the sound of her smacking against the pavement.
But no, yeah, it's all cut. It's a very, yeah. It's sort of putting us in Thanos' shoes again. And it's like, this is a really terrible person. And it's kind of a brave, controversial choice of this movie to have the audience be sort of like with him to the extent that we are.
And like, yeah, those are not fake tears. Like he is actually devastated that he is willing himself to kill his own adopted daughter.
Yeah. Oh, and here we go.
Hitting
We're about to
Wakanda.
hear a really cool sort of mix of the Avengers theme and the Wakanda theme. It's like a really
what
cool
I
use of
love
like,
so much about this Wakanda stuff, it's the same thing I love about the Guardian stuff. Like Ryan Coogler was very instrumental in designing like how all the exterior stuff would look, how the like the planes they're fighting on for the big climax would look, um, and the designs of the guards and all that. Like the Russos are working very closely with Coogler to make sure everything still looks authentic to the way it does in Black Panther.
yeah. Which is, there are always some people online who like don't appreciate that and are like, yeah, the Russos made it look terrible. And it's like, yeah, you guys, you're not, yeah, just shut up. Although again, small character moments that I like. I like Rhodey playing that little joke on Bruce, where it's like, that's, I don't know. Again, this is the kind of stuff that I wish would get expanded, but again, we only have so much time in this movie, and we're spending it in the right places. But it's like, I like that Rhodey's comfortable enough to him, yeah, with him to play like that little joke, and like you get the feeling that Bruce probably doesn't get treated that way often enough by people because they're too worried about the Hulk and stuff.
Yeah, and he gets to be like a real person finally in a way that he hasn't been able to be for a long time ever since he became the Hulk.
Yeah, and he gets to like uh, sort of prove that he can handle stuff on his own action wise, but we'll get to that. And here we have Shuri, very small role, but proves that she's a freaking genius.
Yep, and according to the Russos and Kevin Feige, the smartest character in the MCU.
Yep.
How do you feel about the fact that they
I'm really interested to
kind of
see
told us that
if she really.
she's dusted? How do you feel about that?
Sorry, what did you say?
We know that she's
About
dusted
what?
going into Endgame, so how do you feel about that?
We're assuming because of
No,
trailers and stuff.
well, we're not
Uh,
assuming. They more or less have told us without telling us that she's dusted, because
yeah, but again,
not only is her face on the screens for people who are missing, but when they release those recent posters, all those character posters that say "Avenge the Fallen," all the black
oh
ones
right,
are dead characters, and Shuri is one of them.
she's on. Right. Okay.
Huh?
So here's the. Hmm. I I feel like knowing that now, or at least assuming that now, we really should have cut to her in this movie and seen it happen with all of the other ones. I'm not sure why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's really bizarre for me. Like that's weird that she does, and we don't see that.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't think of what. Maybe they're saving it for Endgame, but I can't think of why they would. I don't know. I'm of half a mind that they're like playing a trick on us, and she's still alive in some capacity. I don't know.
I
That's
don't know.
probably a
I
long
don't
shot,
think
but
those posters
I'm
are
really not.
a trick. Like they've already come out and said they've manipulated footage in the trailers. Um, but those character posters are clearly meant to show you these are characters that are dead, and these are the ones that are alive.
Yeah, but on that token, those character posts obviously would not have taken much effort. So if they wanted to be tricky with those, they could just do it. Like it would take far like infinitesimally less effort to lie with those posters than it would to lie with a trailer. So why do one and not the other?
Fair enough.
I don't know. Like I said, it's a long shot. She probably is dead, but I'm just trying to rationalize why would they not just show us?
Um, I don't know. Maybe because
So
there's no
pretty.
one
This
around
movie's so
Shuri.
gorgeous.
Yeah, this is gorgeous. There'd be no one around Shuri to see her dust.
Well, she has that one guard near her.
Yeah, but she's knocked unconscious too.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll see. It's not like it's a big deal or anything. It's just a weird curiosity I have.
This bit of the movie. Well, really, this whole movie is epic. But
Like starting now, we're like into Act 3. It's like this is where stuff picks up.
heck yeah, like
As if it wasn't.
Thor making Stormbreaker, the Avengers confronting Thanos, and everyone else holding the lines at Wakanda here.
Hmm. This is maybe another thing. Tripping over himself.
Yeah, a lot of people said they really didn't need Bruce to be resorted to just the comic relief guy for this movie.
I feel like that's the one that really seals it for a lot of people. Like, take out that moment, and I don't think you hear nearly as many complaints about that.
Yeah. And like, I didn't even laugh at him falling. I laughed at Okoye's reaction to it.
Yeah. You can just tell she's thinking, these white people.
M'Baku. That actor is so great. It's been nice to see him, like both in this, in Black Panther, and now in Us. Like he's
Yeah,
really
he's
good.
really good.
He's gonna have a nice, fruitful career.
Mm.
I really like the line. T'Challa doesn't get a lot of lines in this movie, but I really like the line he's about to give here. You're in Wakanda now. Thanos will have nothing but dust and blood. I love that line.
And I mean, he's not wrong.
Such a cool line. The Outriders are really menacing. As cannon fodder antagonists, I think they're the best we've had yet. Like they're more interesting and kind of freaky and fun to look at than just generic robots or even the Chitauri. Like they're just these vicious monsters.
Yeah, just because of how I had the word, just because of like how completely mindless they are. Like they're just rabid animals, and like that adds to the sense of how overwhelming they are. Like they don't bother with a plan or a strategy, just pure numbers, and you can't deal with it.
And even though like the Wakandans have super high tech weapons, like the monsters are conveyed to be so savage and powerful that you feel like it would take two or three of just one of the Wakandans just to take one of them down.
Yeah.
This is so
Oh
epic.
boy.
And I really like how we give all the characters their moments. Like
Yeah.
Sam gets his cool moment here,
Yeah.
like launching all those drones, and then we're gonna see War Machine come in and just drop dozens and dozens of bombs.
I always love War Machine. So's a War Machine move because they know how to just have him unload on stuff and make it look awesome. Like the Russos really know how to make each and every one of these guys look impressive. And I feel like they're the first ones to do that with War Machine, specifically, where it's like, oh yeah, he's like a heavy hitter.
Yeah, he definitely is, and I don't know, he got some cool moves in Iron Man 2. They kind of underutilized him in Iron Man 3, but like the Russos really know how to use War Machine in action scenes.
Hmm. Oh,
Oh, the big moment. Wakanda forever.
straight up. And now we have him and Steve running, and they run to the front of the pack. It's
Oh,
so
this was
cool.
a massive cheer moment for me, just seeing those two sprinting together.
Yep.
I was like, the whole crowd was cheering. I was
Yep.
cheering. I almost jumped out of my seat. This shot right here of them
Oh,
sprinting
yeah.
together.
Look at it. Yeah, baby. It is gonna be so hard for the rest of this to just not be like
Gushing.
like wordless gush vomit. Yes.
They shot a good bit of this in Georgia.
Yeah.
Like almost like we know most of the Marvel movies shoot there. Almost this entire Wakanda scene is shot in Georgia.
Hmm. Yeah. Only if I die. Yes.
It's kind of what killing you
Killing
means.
means.
Oh, so funny every time. This is like I'm so jealous of kids. Like this is
Oh.
literally their Empire Strikes Back. They got to grow up with this.
Yeah. Assuming we don't destroy the world first, but yeah. Ah, so cool. And also, like, because I will probably get to mention this, I really like Stormbreaker's design more than Mjolnir. It's so cool. I'm glad we have it now.
Yeah, and another thing I love about it, Perry mentioned this when she reviewed the movie. Um, like that handle is Groot's, and so it's like a reminder of Groot. It's a constant reminder of Groot and like Thor's interaction with the Guardians.
Yeah, it's like a permanent link between the two teams.
Yeah, and so I really like that. Like it's kind of symbolic in that way.
Speaking of which,
Oh,
here's Groot's moment to
yeah, we're
do
about to get one of the
something.
most epic, iconic shots. Like Groot with Stormbreaker right here, like forming Stormbreaker. That should be a poster.
Really, it should. In fact, I almost feel like we cut that shot maybe a second too early, but it's still so great.
It's beautiful.
Again, everything's about time. We ain't got time to spare on where exactly Eitri goes or what he's doing, but feels
Yes,
kind of weird that he's just out of the movie now.
and well, I mean, Eitri's there, but he can't use his hands or
So
anything.
good.
Oh, so epic.
Yeah.
And in the trailer, he's standing up, but he doesn't have Stormbreaker, and he just shoots out lightning. Again, really effective
Yeah.
stuff that they put together for the trailer. And but even still in the final feature, like it's what it needs to be.
Hmm.
I was shocked for War Machine in that moment. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And it's like, again, you can see they take him out because he's actually causing them some trouble.
Yeah. And this is the big moment where like everyone's losing and they need something to turn the tide.
This is a freaking cheer movie, man.
One of the biggest cheer moments in movie history. It was like being
And like
at a football stadium.
yeah, this and we talked about how it's weird to use like the Avengers theme before like the whole team is together. Here, I don't care. This is
It
like
works.
the
This is
circle shot
perfect.
again. This is yeah. This is like they somehow recaptured the circle shot feeling.
Yes.
I love that. You're so screwed now.
Give me Thanos. That's the only weird bit where the CGI doesn't look great in this movie. Like that's not a good composite of his head in the suit. But
Look at it.
oh, boom!
It's so good.
Bring me Thanos.
And then we do exactly what we did with the circle shot, and we'll do it again where the circle shot happens and it's amazing and you're like, oh my god, they've got this in the bag. And we cut to Loki and he's just real calm, like, send in the rest. Where it's like, oh, that moment was super triumphant, but it is not over and it is not going to be easy. And we do that here, where it's like everyone's hyped out over Thor, cut to Thanos, and it's like, oh right.
Yep, like they're still not close to, not even remotely close to winning this battle. Yeah.
Yeah. And this whole conversation with him and Strange is great.
Doctor Strange is also very well utilized in this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't hear a lot of people talk about his solo film. Like, a lot of people were more wrapped up in the visuals than anything else whenever Doctor Strange came out. That's all people really talked about. And I've gone back to that movie a fair amount. I think I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times since it came out in theaters and hit DVD. Haven't gone back to it as much as other Marvel films, but I do think it's a good movie. And
I go back to it a lot, and I think what the Strange in this movie, I foresee something very similar happening with Carol in Endgame, where not a lot of people like really loved her movie as much as I did, but I think once they get their hands on her and like utilize her as part of the ensemble, I think they are going to endear Carol to a lot of people the same way that they did with Strange in this movie.
And you know what's interesting about Captain Marvel that I didn't find out until watching an interview with Joe Russo today?
Hmm?
Captain Marvel's scenes in Endgame were filmed before she filmed her standalone movie.
Oh, that's really interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that like affects the performance, if at all. And oh, yep, there we go. Just drop a thing on him.
Yeah, might have worked if your goal was to piss him off, Tony.
Ah, now he's mad. And this whole fight is just so cool.
This fight is so much fun.
I will say Drax is kind of underutilized. It feels like in every movie Drax has been in, we've kind of struggled with how to use him in fight scenes.
Well, he is just a guy that's like moderately stronger than a human being and has some daggers. Like, I don't know what else you'd use him for in this fight. Like, he's not super dynamic in terms of crafting a fight scene around.
Yeah, but at the same time, guys have constantly like made Captain America dynamic in fights and stuff.
That's true. That is very true.
It just feels weird that he's the one character in all of these movies who I feel hasn't had like any standout action moments, and he's been in 3 movies.
Well, we just talked over one of my favorite bits with Spider-Man in this movie, where he's jumping through the portals and kicking Thanos in the face.
Yeah, and again, I like that's a funny moment that Thanos then immediately undercuts by just grabbing him and being like, "No, dude, like you're not, no." And smash.
I'm very curious to see how much Nebula will be in Endgame, because we're selling Endgame weirdly a lot on her, and I know she's the one to get the glove away from Thanos in the original comic book storyline. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I would imagine they're not going to go that way. They're not going to be super comic book accurate to that when they do Endgame.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I might be wrong. In fact, like, odds are I'm wrong. But I would not be shocked if in Endgame, the gauntlet itself is no longer even a plot device. Like, Thanos has wrecked it, like, we're done with the gauntlet.
Like, that's not even something they can use to get everyone back.
Yeah. But yeah, on the subject of Nebula, I think she's gonna be a pretty major role.
And this is the big scene that everyone throws Peter Quill under the bus for. I think it really works. I think everyone's in character. The whole reason this scene works is because they're being faithful to the characters. Like, we don't like his actions. We don't have to condone his actions, but I do think it's important that his actions are understandable, and they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe he's not making the choice that you or I would make in that moment, but he's making a believable choice for who this character is.
Yeah. And I feel like honestly I make that choice. Like I
Like,
don't necessarily have anyone in my life who is exactly what Gamora is for Peter, but if I did, I think I might struggle for a minute. Like, and again, this is still like a fallout from he was going to kill her himself because she asked him to, and he went through with it, and then it didn't happen. And so there's this whole swirl of like emotion and psychoses going on. It's like, ah. And the worst thing about it is like they've got him subdued. That plus Thor showing up in Wakanda, it seems like everything is kind of working out. And this is the moment where, from this point forward, everything is just going to get worse and worse and worse.
yeah, I mean, once Thanos gets the Time Stone, I'm like, okay, yep, this is his movie. He won.
But yeah, like even now, like he takes a freaky throwing a moon at them. Like past this point, there was no way they were going to win. Like they made him angry now.
This was the big like ending shot of the first Comic Con footage that leaked of Thanos throwing the moon at them.
Yeah. And like especially, it's especially because we always talk about the implications of that scene for Peter. I don't think we talk enough about how it affects Thanos and how like he's not really toying with them earlier in the scene, but he's not really giving it his all. And then they bring back up like the still fresh wound of having killed Gamora. They like put him
Oh,
back in
real
that
quick, Nick.
moment, basically.
Oh, real quick. Oh, this is a great exchange.
Get
That's
that
so in
R.
character and hilarious. I'll get that R.
Yeah, and see, like that's one of the things where like everyone saw that coming and was like making memes about it. And it's like they did it, of course.
Oh, and this joke with Groot and Steve is also really, really funny.
I am Steve Rogers.
And this is the moment. And we're also really being really smart about the action here, and we are telling story through action. Like this is
Yep.
unleashed to force Scarlet Witch to get out into the field because they know she's the most powerful character at the moment, aside from Thor, because he like just showed up and they didn't even
Exactly.
talk about Thor. Yeah, so like they're forcing horror.
Exactly. And again, this is where we do this is where we do
This is where we do what, Nick?
Yep, and this is where we do our second sort of version of the circle shot and then reverse again, where it's like she comes in and she's freaking awesome, and Okoye says like, "Well, why was she up there all this time?" And then we cut to, "Oh, that's why she was up there all this time." And it's like we go from a moment of triumph to like send in the rest. Where it's like, "Oh no, this has not made things any easier." And like, oh, it's so sad, like how close Shuri is. Like she's almost got it. If she just had like a few more seconds, they maybe could have done something.
Yeah, and it's if she is dusted going into Endgame, it's weird that they did that off screen, but I understand why. There's no one to see her dust in that moment.
Oh,
Ouch. That was a gnarly hit to the face.
yeah. Followed by another cheer moment.
Yeah, this is another big chill moment, especially from the females in the audience. This is a big like
Yeah,
female empowerment kind of moment.
yeah. This is so cool.
Yeah, and I really like that. Like it doesn't feel like a Supergirl moment of like we're patting ourselves on the back for having strong female characters. It's just she's not alone, and that's enough. That's all you needed.
Yeah. And now Bruce has to deal with Cull Obsidian, and he actually gets to take him out in a cool moment, but Vision is kind of Sans backup.
Yeah, I mean,
This is the last second.
oh, Nick, you were right on point. Like you
About
said,
what?
you were right on point when you said at the last second. It like lined up perfectly.
Yeah. And like
Yeah,
Hulk not showing up was probably the biggest mislead in all of the marketing for this movie.
definitely.
And again, we'll see how Endgame concludes it, but I think this was a really good. I think this like whole thing for Bruce's character is really good.
Yeah, I
Like
like
letting
it.
him be the one who has to do the heavy lifting for once, having him be the proactive one,
Yeah,
and
um,
ooh,
I
ugh,
I don't like that.
just is not.
Yeah, like this whole scene is really good. And Steve Rogers is gonna come in. I like that. We depowered him because we just like we had to make this work to make him vulnerable enough that they could get the stone from him. But
Yeah,
like because in
and
Civil War,
this is gruesome.
oh, this is awesome. Yeah, that was really gross.
Yeah. Ow.
Oh, and we're going to get the repeat of something that Cap said to Vision earlier in the movie when he says, "We don't trade lives." Oh, that's really great.
Thanos does lives, and that's why he wins.
That's why he wins. He has to sacrifice so many people to get to his goal.
Hmm. I got you. Sorry, I can't remember anybody's names. Which that's just, of course, that would happen. Oh, here we go. Showdown time.
This Doctor Strange versus Thanos sequence is so epic.
Yeah.
And this was a big cheer moment for me when he turns Thanos's like ball into butterflies. Oh, and this the
Yes.
multiple arms, so cool.
It's ridiculous how many people cheered during the whole thing.
Oh yeah, like this was
And okay, we haven't mentioned this, and I feel like I've heard people talk about it before,
uh-huh.
but I really like how they were to like create the sort of rule for themselves where to use the gauntlet he has to close his fist, and Doctor Strange like takes advantage of that. And they're taking advantage of it now, like stop him from closing his hand and he can't use the gauntlet. That's a nice way of kind of like a little mechanic that the characters can take advantage of that limits Thanos and makes it a little bit more fair.
Yeah, gives him a bit of a fight, and it gives Tony some chance to get some hits in here. And he's the only one to really
Yeah.
put a dent in Thanos throughout this whole movie, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
All
And so
that for
like
a
I'm
drop of
waiting.
blood, but he's the only one to draw blood from Thanos this whole movie.
Well, him and Thor.
Him and Thor, yes, up until this point.
Hmm. And like he's smiling, like
He's
he's
impressed.
someone's put a dent in him, and it doesn't bother him at all.
No, but he's
Like he's
impressed
like,
with the,
good,
being
this
able
is
to do that.
fun now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this big
And
moment.
Stark is like the one person in this movie who Thanos admits to respecting. so many people thought he was like dead, dead.
Yes. But when I tell you I've never seen, like, this is the big moment where grown men are crying and sobbing right next to me.
Yeah. Like, ooh
It,
boy, ooh boy.
this is such a big, powerful moment. And like, I hear, well, there was some complaint from people that it was a cop out not to go through with killing him here.
No, that for multiple reasons I disagree with that.
So do I. But I did hear that complaint, so I don't know if you had a rebuttal for that.
Well, I mean, like one, no happening, or we know that a continuation of some kind is happening, especially once it ends. And he has to be around for that. He just has to. It makes the most thematic sense. And two, again, internally, Doctor Strange, as we're about to see, has this whole thing gamed out, and he knows Tony has to survive. So he like engineers this moment.
Yeah. He knows like this is the only way that they actually win eventually. Like there was no other
Yeah.
scenario where things work out for them and they're able to eventually beat Thanos. They have to lose so that they can then win.
Hmm.
And it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in Endgame. But like, yeah, I don't think even though he's come to respect Stark throughout the short time they've had together, I don't think he changed his mind at all about what he said to him earlier on the ship.
Yeah, he just realized in between then and there that this is what it's gonna take for a long time.
And Tony's instrumental in that. Tony
And
has
there's
to be
Quill.
alive
Yep.
for that to work.
And Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. is the final one that I will give MVP to. And this line read of like, why would you do that? Such a great moment.
Great actor.
So it's him, Hemsworth, Brolin, and Zaldana who I think are the
I,
MVPs of this movie. The
I
full
think it's
three.
really telling that he says we're in the end game now. And I do think it's interesting that Whedon kind of has an unintentional comeback to it in Ultron where Tony says that up there, that's the end game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a really fun coincidence that Endgame already came up before in the previous Avengers movie.
And again, nothing but dread once like here now, this is it. Like he enters the scene and it's already over.
Yeah, they lost this fight before it even starts.
You know, everyone is just like, oh dear sweet Jesus, what's happening? Like no other villain in any of these movies has gotten this reaction out of the good guys. Of just like, they're here, oh crap.
Yeah. The first time they're all seeing him and they're terrified. Oh, aside from Bruce. Well, Cap is level-headed, but you can just feel the dread
He's
coming
gotta
from
be the
him.
leader, but
Yeah,
it's not exactly gonna be much use of yep.
mhm.
And this, oh gosh.
Yeah. I like
Bruce
that
is really
Thanos.
lucky that like his
I like that Thanos isn't going out of his way to kill everyone here. Like his mission is just to get all the stones and then just snap half of life out of existence. Um,
yeah, like we just had a giant blowout action scene. Like the time for the spectacle of it is done.
yeah,
Thanos is not looking to engage with these guys
no,
like he engaged with the other team. Like they really are just a nuisance to him at this point.
yeah, he's just moving them out of the way.
And this whole bit, like, again, ah man, I almost feel tempted to add Elizabeth Olsen to the MVP list just because she's really, really good in this scene. My God.
Yeah,
Like, look at her.
in as
She's
little, yeah, her quivering and like in as little time of we've spent with them and like their relationship that I'm like totally invested and I buy all of this. Like it's great.
and and Paul Bettany, it's like he's really quiet, like it's okay. It's all right. I love you. Everything's gonna be fine. Like this whole thing is just so sad.
And everyone's trying relentlessly to stop him and just nothing's working. That's what I
Mhm.
love about this movie is like we were bold enough to make a movie of this size and scale with these characters we're invested in, and they lose. They don't win.
Yeah.
That's
And the,
that's another thing I love about the
this
first
just like
season
the
of.
moment of
Go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna say this is just like the moment of him throwing Gamora off the cliff where we let the score overtake any of the sound and we focus on faces.
Yeah.
Like this is all about like the emotion of the characters. And out cold with one punch.
Oh, we remain perfectly synced on this. This is good.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you earlier. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say that's one of the things that I loved most about the first season of Arrow, and why that show really resonated with me is like we really get to know Oliver, and we follow him in his mission, and we do all that build up for him to eventually lose in the end, and like a good third of the city gets destroyed, and he couldn't stop it, and his best friend died.
Hmm.
Like that was my first time really experiencing like a story um, on screen where the hero loses.
And the
It's
movie is still playing games with you.
yeah,
Like
it's still
it's
playing with your
still got you
expectations all the way
happy.
through.
Yeah, like again, movie rules, cosmic justice. We've made the sacrifice. We've decided to give up the loved one for the sake of the greater good. And like in any other movie, that would be it. Like we had our big loss, and yet now the world is safe at least, or life is safe. But nope.
And he'll just reverse it. And
Like it's a
I was
special.
thinking that the whole time as I was watching this scene. He's just going to reverse this.
Like it's especially, but especially impactful being in a theater full of people who like watch these movies casually and don't think about it as hard as we do,
Yeah.
and who aren't like in this scene thinking, oh, he'll just reverse it. Like they're caught up in the scene of this movie. Like they haven't spent any time wondering like how events will play out. They just watched Vision die, and that is what's sticking with them. And as soon as Thanos uses the time stone, they're like, oh no, that's cheating. Like it didn't occur to them that he could cheat like that until he does it. And it's like that's a testament to how this movie is just playing games with you. And then even now, right now, we've got Thor coming in, and he didn't have a comm, so he wasn't with the rest of the team. Whatever. He makes his entrance at the perfect time, hits Thanos, and the crowd goes wild. They think finally, this is it. Thor's got him. All of those reversals and expectation subversions, Thor was the guy who finally managed to take him out. And like Thanos is in obvious pain, got him right in the heart. Ooh. The music, the score of the scene is kind of like winding down, like it's coming down off of this massive high, and yet you should have gone for the head, Thor. And it's like that's Thor's big mistake, in the same way that hitting Thanos was Quill's big mistake. Both of these guys really let their trauma and their like feelings and their ego sort of like mess them up, and it's all rooted in character, all of it, and it's so
Yeah.
spectacular.
This scene definitely confused me
And
on
now, like
first viewing.
in this movie, is basically holding its breath, like the audience is holding its breath, like, did that really just happen?
Yeah. I was confused as hell the first time I saw this scene.
I'm still not 100
Like the
I
Russos said
agree
that
with this.
he's randomly in the Soul Stone for whatever reason.
Okay, so I don't know. That might lend some credence to the idea that Gamora is still like quote unquote alive inside there, or I don't know.
Yeah, they've said her soul is in the Soul Stone because Thanos needed to
Okay,
sacrifice
so
her to get it.
we'll have to see the implications of that. But and now the gauntlet is ruined. He's still able to use it to get it out of there, so maybe it is functional. But I don't know.
It's running on fumes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the gauntlet is no longer a factor in the story now that it's done its job.
Yeah, and especially because with like the newest trailer they released for Endgame, we see Thanos beam down to some decimated ruins. It's not he doesn't use the space
Yeah,
stone to teleport there like he's been
and
doing throughout this movie.
and Bucky's gone, and the fangirls all die a little.
Yeah. And like Steve doesn't have like as like an emotional reaction to this as you would think. Like it's almost catatonic. Like he doesn't even want to process what he just saw.
Yeah, I don't think any of them do. And it's like I had a conversation with someone on
The
Twitter about like how
This Black Panther bit was the most shocking to me. Like seeing him dust, especially since he said this is no place to
yeah,
die. Like my jaw hit the
I
floor.
thought was I thought for sure it was going to be a Okoye, and then nope. And you can hear her screaming like, "Oh God!" in the distance. Like it's not often we see these characters react like this strongly to something. And Wanda is
Wanda.
just kind of think
She had to kill her
she's the one who
yeah, she had to kill her loved one. And then he was brought back and she had to watch him get killed again. And then she dies.
Sam is gone. I know that hurt in low time watching Sam disappear.
Oh,
And there goes Mantis.
there goes Mantis, yeah.
And just like the effect that they chose to show this happening, so good.
Oh, and the
Like everyone disappearing into dust and floating off into the distance. And it's like and like the camera work of this scene and the fact that there's no score at all. It's just freaking powerful stuff, man.
yeah. On first viewing and second viewing, people were distraught, man. Like this cannot be happening. Like people some people you hear some people being outraged, like what the hell? Other people were just
And
crying.
then it's and that's the biggest example.
Oh yeah, this is the big one. And this version of Spider-Man really hits home for people. Like a lot of people see MCU Spider-Man as definitive Spider-Man. So
Yeah, or if not
to
definitive,
see him
still just
dust
like
is really something.
yeah. The fact that he's just such a like happy-go-lucky for the most part innocent kid. And it's like that's not a perspective that we've had in any of these movies, and here he is, and now he's gone. And Nebula just like resigned. He did it. And it's
Especially because like you remember that scene in Homecoming where he's like, um, if something happens to you, I feel like that's on me. And we see that happen.
and and that's why he says, I'm sorry. And this shot, just like everyone who's left, They have no idea what to do. They're just completely resigned. And Steve, who has been like the leader, trying to keep everyone together for all this time since he showed up, and for once he has no option, no idea what to do. He just says, "Oh God,
It's,
it's
it's
happened. It's over."
it's so powerful. That's the last line we hear in this movie. Oh God, like
Yeah, it's just like it's not just that the villain wins and it's like a cliffhanger. Like Empire Strikes Back ends with a sense of hope, unless you include the post-credit scene, which doesn't have its full context before you know about Carol. This movie ends with just complete hopelessness. It's not just that the bad guy won, it's that he murdered half of life, and as far as the people in the story are concerned, there is no way back from this.
yeah, they have no idea what to do.
Like, it's an astonishingly dark movie. And just.
Like, and another thing I love about my first, like, I don't know if I told you about this. Well, I probably have. This movie still is like the best theater going experience I've ever had in my entire life. Like seeing this movie for the first time in the
Yep.
theater, that was something special that I for the longest time I didn't think could ever be replicated, and probably won't until I see Endgame on opening night. But like
Yeah.
when these credits hit, like no one got up. Everyone was still in their seats, just processing what they just saw.
Yeah, it's like a collect. Because the thing is, like, what Marvel's done with these movies, getting pretty much the entire culture to care about these characters, is that when you do something like this, you're right there in their shoes, because it's like you feel that sense of mourning, and it's like you've gotten endeared to so many characters that it really does feel like you watched half of a world disappear. Like, for 10 years we've been inhabiting this universe and this setting, and now half of the things that we love about that setting are gone. The other half don't know what to do. They're just in a sense of mourning, and you as the audience feel that. It's like we just lost loved ones.
It
And
really
then they
does
do
feel
the
like that. Yeah.
thing with the title, and it's like that's just rubbing salt in the wound. That's not
Oh
fair.
yeah. The title ashing away, that's just the icing on the cake.
And it really makes you feel like, oh man, like I don't know if I expect Endgame to feel like a very different theater experience to what this movie was. Aside from just the way it ends, I think we're all
And the
gonna go
Russos
into
have talked about it as being a very different thing. Like in that interview
yeah,
I watched today, Joe Russo said like Infinity War was told through Thanos' point of view, and Endgame won't be.
yeah. I feel like I might be wrong, and if I am wrong, I will be absolutely fine with that. But I feel like everyone's gonna go into Endgame expecting Infinity War 2, and that's not what it's gonna be.
I don't know if everyone's expecting Infinity War. Well, I mean, I guess yeah. I mean, they kind of are expecting that. I would assume, um, but I'm not expecting that. Just knowing what I know about that movie, like we're dealing with a significantly smaller cast this time around. Um, like who knows when we're finally going to get most of the people who were dusted back, but we're dealing with the core Avengers. I would assume for the majority of that film.
Yeah, and it's oh man, I don't know. I'm kind of what else to talk. Done with 2 solid hours of gushing over everything I love about the movie. Like, I don't know.
Um,
I don't think I'll ever get tired of talking about this thing, man.
I don't think I could either. Especially if we get Endgame and it doesn't make this movie feel superfluous. Like I was afraid after my maybe 10th or 11th viewing where I don't know, for whatever reason, I had a really cynical viewing experience, and I was like, is this movie gonna matter at all once we bring everyone back, or like at least most people back?
Yeah, I feel like the only way that it couldn't is if, again, just went all the way and said the events of the movie didn't even happen, period. Like, I think that's the only way you could then retroactively make it pointless. Because even if they do bring everybody back, like, the scars of going through this experience are not going to go away for these people, I don't think.
Well, see, that's the thing though, and we have Sony to blame for this. Peter doesn't seem to have those scars. Just looking at what they've showed us of Far From Home, he looks like same old happy-go-lucky Peter.
I'm not entirely sure. Just because if this was the same Peter coming off of Homecoming or even this movie, I'm not sure that I buy that he would be like, you know what? I just don't feel like being Spider-Man. I just want to take a break and go on vacation. Like, that doesn't read to me as like, you know what? I'm just kind of tired. I just want to have fun with my friends. The shot of him looking at his costume and him like closing the door on it, that reads to me as like something happened, and maybe being Spider-Man is kind of difficult for him now, and he doesn't want to be dragged into it. And of course, he's gonna get dragged into stuff anyway.
Well, that's the voiceover that they put in that trailer. Well, I
And
just want
he's
to spend
like
vacation with my friends, and
looking at.
New York really doesn't need a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
I'm sure that the character is gonna say that as like an excuse, but like the way that he says it, plus the way that he's looking at that costume, I don't think that's it. I think like he's got like reasons, like maybe PTSD or something. If it's not that complicated, I don't know. And I'm telling you, I think we're gonna sit down, watch Far From Home, and Peter is gonna be like, you know, I just died. I think maybe I want to like lay low for a bit because I just died.
And like a lot of my friends, like that I work with, were really peeved at Sony for putting out that trailer before we got Endgame, um, because like they talk to me all the time, and like they know that I'm someone who I'm like a mega fan, and I keep up with all this stuff. They're fans too, but they literally just watch the movies and like only see trailers. They don't keep up with all this stuff nearly as much as me, and so like if they want to know something, they'll ask me. But like they were really kind of miffed that Sony marketed that movie so early when they really didn't need to. Like it's Spider-Man, like it's going to sell, and it's MCU Spider-Man. Like why did you have to put that trailer out as far in advance as you did before Endgame even came out?
As far in advance, yeah, as a problem, we would be saying the same things if it came out before Endgame at all. And let's be real, with the way that the release dates are, they had to. So it's like whether they did it a couple of months ago or like this week, they would be getting complaints about it. So really, the only real solution would have been to move Far From Home's release date, which I understand why they didn't. So we just kind of have to roll with the punches.
Yeah, that's what I was explaining to them. Like um, the like the way marketing films works, like you put out your first trailer quite a few months in advance, and then put out posters, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that just happened to be how it lined up, and we all knew he was coming back. But for them, it's just they didn't want to be reminded of that before they even went into Endgame.
Yeah. But it's like intellectually, I feel like most of us immediately kind of assume that.
Yeah,
And
like
again,
Black
all that
Panther.
matters is context.
Yeah, like
So like again, I have faith in these guys. They haven't really let me down yet with any of these movies.
uh-huh.
Homecoming knocked it out of the park as far as I was concerned, so I trust that they know what they're doing and that they're gonna take everything into consideration with this character. So I'm really not worried about it.
Yeah, I'm not either. Black Panther being one of the most successful MCU movies, like there's no way they were just going to kill him off in the very next film and not bring him back.
Yeah.
And we know
Although I
Doctor
do.
Strange is getting a sequel. Like, there's all these things. Like, if you pull yourself completely out of the story and you look at like announcements and things, you just know going in. But even not looking at all that, I do think Marvel has done a fairly good job of telling stories with these characters. Um, and I remain slightly skeptical. Well, not skeptical, but maybe a little cautious and like worried how this movie will hold up after we get Endgame.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll see how that happens. Whatever happens, whether it's for better or worse, it is going to retroactively change some things about this movie. I doubt very much that it's going to fundamentally alter viewing experience, like going back to rewatch it, but it is going to be interesting to see what exactly the implications looking back are.
And here we go, post-credit scene.
Fury showing up properly for the first time since Age of Ultron.
And he was pissed that he wasn't in Civil War.
Which I would be too, but again, like not including Pepper, it's a very clear story reason where it's like, I don't think that if Fury were there to like inform people's decisions that Fury would not let Avengers infighting escalate to that degree. He's like the parent who has to be away so that the kids can fight.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's the perfect way to put it.
And that, like, again, this is another like the impact of what has just happened really hitting you and hitting the audience. When that helicopter crashes into that building, that brings to the fore is like, oh right, it's not just that characters we know and like are like disappearing into dust. People who are like doing stuff and like public transportation are disappearing, and that means more than half of the people on Earth are dying. Like imagine like a doctor in a hospital operating on someone and they disappear in the middle of an operation or something. And there's our tease for Carol. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's ugh. So that was Infinity War again. Thanos will return. Just rub salt in the wound one last time. And yeah.
That was a whole lot of fun. There's so much more we could have talked about. And it's crazy because as long as the movie is, you feel like we would get time to talk about everything we want to, but there's so much happening in every scene.
Yeah. Well, now that we've mentioned it, I'm kind of intrigued about the idea of maybe not necessarily doing another commentary, but on top of talking about Endgame once we've seen it, maybe doing a whole thing dedicated to how much, if at all, does it change our viewings of this movie. Like maybe once we have some distance, once we've seen Endgame and go back to Infinity War again, see if that's changed anything.
Yeah, that would be fun. Well, guys, I had a blast doing this commentary. Nick, I hope you did as well.
Yeah, definitely. I am definitely doing more of these once we like land on another thing to talk about. This was fun.
And guys, if you want the video version of this, where you don't have to link up to the film and watch it as we discuss it, just leave your Gmail account in the description, and I will email you a link to where you can watch the video version.
Excellent. So until then, leave us your thoughts. We will see you guys later.